Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Front Page Fitness. My name is Eric Trexler. This is episode 24. I'm joined, as always, by the good Dr. Lauren Colenso-Semple. Lauren, how are we doing today?
Very, very bad. Everything's terrible.
Oh, well, that's a change of pace. So what seems to be, what can I do for you? How can I fix this? What's going on?
Well, let me tell you about my weekend.
Perfect. I'm sure it was a great weekend.
I think I texted you at one point mid-journey. I was going to Dallas this weekend. Natalia Mello invited me to speak at an event, kind of a women's fitness wellness event that was Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it is 2.5 hours to fly from Toronto to Dallas. So I left on Friday midday. I was going to get there in the afternoon, and then there was a evening event, and I was scheduled to speak on the Saturday along with many other folks. And I, maybe an hour into our flight, we were diverted to Kansas City because the whole Dallas-Fort Worth airport had a meltdown. There were some phone lines that were out that apparently affect all air traffic control communication. So thousands of flights were affected by this.
That's the thing that always rattles you, is when you find out that all of American infrastructure basically depends on like 4 landline telephones and a large stack of floppy disks. And then you hear that like the floppy disk reader is out, and so therefore our entire country is vulnerable and we cannot travel anymore. But anyway, as you were.
So we arrive in Kansas City and we sit on the ground for a few hours, and they keep telling us like, well, you know, we're still going to Dallas. We're going to be taking off. And it's like that whole thing they do where they delay the flight a half hour over and over and over again.
Makes it feel way better, right?
Totally.
The 7th.
It's great.
Oh, cool. Oh, interesting. Another 30-minute delay. That's crazy.
And I was sitting in the very back row on the aisle, which is very close to the bathroom. And guess what everyone does when you're sitting on the ground for 2 hours? Everyone on the plane goes to the bathroom. So there is just a line of people. Bathroom floor was so full of urine that people were rolling up their pants before they entered the bathroom.
Oh, Lord. Yeah.
I didn't see anyone cook any shrimp or attempt to do any of that stuff.
Can I just ask a question? Why was there so much on the floor? What happened?
I'm going to blame the dudes.
Okay.
Maybe they don't know how to aim properly.
See, that's very strange to me because sometimes, well, I think I've been on planes, I could be mistaken, where they actually do the very cool portalet thing, like the porta potty thing, where there's like this cool like side compartment that you can use as a urinal, which should reduce the chance of missing very precipitously, very considerably. So not so sure what was going on there with your fellow travelers, but that's very disappointing to hear. So all in all, how long were we sitting on the floor in what I assume was probably a hotter than comfortable cabin that also smelled like urine?
That was about 2.5 hours. And then they said, your flight has been rescheduled for 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're getting off the plane. Go stand at the ticket counter and wait for your hotel voucher so you can stay in Kansas City at one of the, lovely local airport hotels. 2 hours in that line to get my hotel voucher and my $12 food voucher.
Yeah.
Shuttle to my hotel. It wasn't.
So those food vouchers, they have not corrected for inflation within the last 20 years, sounds like.
Accurate.
Right. Yeah.
And so that at this point, so again, I left in the 1 p.m. It's now 8 p.m. I'm shuttling to my hotel. I arrive. I'm starving because the only thing I got on American Airlines was a water and a small bag of pretzels. And I eat at the lovely hotel restaurant. It wasn't $12. And my food voucher didn't work. Meanwhile, The gate agents told us be at the airport around 3:30 tomorrow morning. It's going to be so crazy. So you got to get really early to get that 6 a.m. flight. Now, the flight was delayed 3 times, ultimately leaving at 12:40 p.m. And I eventually make it to Dallas. Of course, I've missed like the whole event at this point, and I had to Uber to the hotel, change immediately, attempt to look presentable. I was not very successful, and then like run into the room and speak and like, pretend everything was fine after a 26-hour journey from Toronto to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, 26 hours of travel is not unheard of, but it's usually when you're going from like New Zealand to Alaska. It's generally not Toronto to Dallas. So it is interesting. That's quite a bad stretch of luck there. I'm
Oh, I'm
just
not done. I'm not
Oh,
done.
okay. Okay, go on.
So now I'm in Dallas for like 12 hours. And then I return to the airport for my 8:15 a.m. flight. And I'm like, all right, it's Sunday. I'm going to get back at 11:30 and, you know, get ready for the week, right? We board the plane. It's just like a few minutes late, no big deal. And then we're sitting there for an hour.
You're getting deja vu.
There's a problem with the emergency slide. So we have to go back to the gate. And then we sit there a little bit longer. Turns out maintenance can't fix this. This plane is inoperable. We got to get off and wait for a new plane. Okay. So we
No,
deplane.
I feel like at that point they should take a vote and say like, all right, passengers, who is comfortable doing this one without the slide? You know what I mean? Like, who's willing to? And you know what?
We,
We'll
I'll,
take a
we
major-
can all sign something.
we'll take a majority vote. If you are against the grain and you don't want part of this, we'll let you off. It's fine. But the people who are comfortable with doing this one without the slide, we're gonna go ahead and try to get to Toronto.
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable.
Because honestly, this may sound hard to believe, but I've been on many flights in my life, still haven't used the slide.
I had a conversation with a flight attendant. Ironically, he was working as a flight attendant on my Friday flight, but he was traveling back as a passenger on my Sunday flight. And so we ended up chatting, and he was like, it's every flight attendant's dream to pull the slide because we've never done it. Because once you do it, it's like a one-time use thing, and then it costs the airline about $150,000 to like fix it and reinstall it in the plane. So he too has never even seen the slide ejected.
I'm starting to wonder if it exists. Like I've heard way less justifiable conspiracy theories. If no one has ever seen this thing in action, there's a high probability it does not exist.
Yeah, it's just like an AI generated video of it shooting out of the plane.
Yeah. So okay,
Okay,
then
so we
what?
deplane, we wait for another plane. We're getting out of our like we're at the gate. They're like, "No, actually, it's not this gate. It's gate 26." We all walk to gate 26. Oh, just kidding. It's gate 19. We walk to gate 19. Just kidding. Sorry, it's actually gate 26, so we walk back to gate 26. Sorry guys, it's gate 19, so we walk back to gate 19. Ultimately, after 2 hours, we get on plane number 2. Buckled in, ready to go. I'm going to be in Toronto 3 to 4 hours later than anticipated, but we're going. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a problem with the air conditioning. We need maintenance to come down and see what's going on. So, not only are we sitting on the plane, again, there's no air at all
Yeah.
in Dallas.
Yeah.
2.5 hours later, we're still sitting there. And so now this has been going on, 8 o'clock to 2 o'clock. No one's given us water or
This is for
even
they
the
told you to get there at
pretzels.
3:30 in the morning call time.
And we're like, everyone is sweating. And ultimately, guys, we're going to need to deplane. This plane is inoperable. We need a third plane. Keep in mind, I'm in Dallas, flying American Airlines. Dallas is the hub for American Airlines, meaning they have an abundance of planes just sitting there. And
Yeah.
somehow plane number 2 is also not functional. So we get off the plane. They
See,
have to
that's the
find us a
problem.
new plane.
Since you were at the hub, it means they're going in deep in the hangar and just dusting off the old planes and say, let's bring them out. You know, if you're doing it from a non-hub city, that thing must have flown in there to get there in the first place. You know, so I think that's your problem. You got to stay away from these hubs.
Yeah. Well, plane number 3 ultimately took off, and all in all, it was a 12-hour journey to get home. So that did beat the 26-hour journey to arrive. But I spent more time in airports, airport hotels, and on planes than I care to in a single weekend, and it will take me a long time to recover. I do not forgive American Airlines. They have done nothing to remedy the situation. I'm going to file a very extreme complaint, which I'm sure they'll take seriously, and that they'll, do something to compensate me.
I'd go further than a complaint. I mean, a lawsuit, some kind of international tribunal. I mean, see what you can do. Run that one all the way up the chain. Yeah, that's
The
brutal.
thing is, I know people complain about travel all the time, but this one, objectively, like, come on.
Yeah. It's funny because my wife, I was just juxtaposing the stories. My wife recently traveled, and they had to actually sit on the what do you call it? Sit on the runway for a while. Yeah, they couldn't actually take off. They were just kind of hanging out there for a while. But they were actually on the news because there were musicians on the plane, and so they did a little concert. And everyone had a grand old time, and everyone was happy and smiling, and so it was a little bit different than your delay. If only your delays could have been consolidated into like a couple hours total and also had some musicians on board and a generally joyous vibe. I feel like it might have gone better.
We were trying to stay positive, but it was almost one of those things where, coming off of my Friday Saturday experience, when it started happening again on Sunday, I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like we're this is happening, guys. Like, maybe we're not even making it out of here ever. And like I said, the flight attendant who was on that Friday flight was flying as a passenger, and he was sitting behind me. So maybe there was something about the two of us that just sort of jinxes all airline travel. So if I see him on any future flight, I will immediately get off the plane.
Yeah, if not for yourself, at least for everybody else. You
Right.
know,
Yes.
it's kind of the right thing to do.
That's right.
Well, Lauren, I don't have as many interesting updates. I've just been kind of doing my thing. So, with that out of the way, let's resolve to never travel again, and let's hop into some of the fitness content here.
Right.
Now, when you're not flying, one mode of transportation could theoretically be running, depending on the distance. But you might have fared better running from Toronto to Dallas, based on your story here. But you and I both independently, or no, I sent this to you. I found this on Instagram. It was someone saying, essentially, whatever you do, do not run. It was a physician saying, just get on a bike. It's better for you. So basically, this physician, I'll give it the rundown since I'm the one who found this one. Uh, it's a physician who basically said you start running, it's bad for your knees and ankles and hips, and then he started talking about your face starts sagging and your skin gets worse, and there's a whole laundry list of things. And you get shorter. And he was just like, listen, running is like absolutely disastrous. Not even once. Don't even mess with it. It's a gateway mode of exercise. Stay away. Just get on a bike. So, Lauren, as a person who, I would say your lane on the internet is fighting false claims that really indulge in catastrophizing and ultimately sway people away from practical means of bettering their health. Did this one make you feel any type of way?
So for the listener, this is Gerald with a G, Imber with an I, MD. So
His friends
Dr.
call him Jerry.
Gerald
Just so you know.
Imber. And he is a world-renowned plastic surgeon and facial rejuvenation expert in New York.
Hmm.
And what interested me about this, he's also an older gentleman, seasoned, with really, really bad skin, like
Well,
extremely sun damaged
you would
skin.
not be saying that if you knew he was actually 136 years old. He's doing quite well for himself based on his age.
So the top comment that gets 2,435 likes is, "Okay, Grandpa, let's get you to bed."
I mean, this was one of those ones where I did see like the comments that come toward the top for me. One said, "It's so sad someone acting like a doctor gives this advice. I've been running for over 35 years and I believe it's the fountain of youth. Bye bye, going for a run." Like, this guy actually got like, I think the kids call it getting ratioed pretty hard in the sense that like no one was really buying this. At least none of the topics or none of the comments that I saw. So I guess that's a good thing. But I wish that we didn't need to be doing this kind of thing. But I will say, like, it makes me feel better to know that I didn't know anything about his background. I didn't bother to look into it. At least I understand why all of a sudden he's talking about sagging faces as a risk of running. I'm like, what are we talking about here? And like being running is bad for your skin. It's like, wait, because you go outside for like 30 minutes to do it? Like, so that seemed very strange to me. So at least that makes sense. And I was a little bit concerned, like, as you alluded to, I wasn't going to bring it up, but this is what I would consider an aged gentleman. And I'm like, damn, man, think about dedicating at this point probably 50 years of your life toward understanding the human body and not getting close. And like, this is after 50 years of studying the human body, you're just missing in 100 different directions. So the fact that he has decided to specialize in the face makes me feel better about his lack of knowledge about, I would say, everything between the chin and the toes.
I just don't understand why every single medical doctor needs to talk about exercise and or nutrition when they have zero knowledge and extremely polarizing advice. Like very hyperbolic messaging, not just like, "Oh yeah, exercise is good, you should do it." It would literally be like me going on Instagram and talking about facelift surgical techniques with,
Yeah.
with my whole chest being like, "Listen, this is a terrible idea. You should absolutely be using this type of incision or you're going to get horrible results. And this is why some people with facelifts look so scary and like pop up a bunch of pictures of people looking horrible." I mean, maybe it'd get views. Maybe I should do it. I take it back.
Yeah.
Stay
I mean,
tuned for that.
I just don't understand why people feel as if they're like they're backed into a corner and they have to do this. They have no choice.
Like, no one's asking for your opinion about
Well,
that.
well, that's the thing though. Is I can tell you within the last couple weeks, within the last few weeks actually, I've had people ask me to chime in on the causes of autism, um,
Yeah.
and even like intergenerational causes of autism, um, gene editing, uh, and like novel experimental myostatin inhibitors. And in all three cases, I said, I don't know anything about that. Therefore, I'm not going to tell you anything about that because I have nothing to share. Like,
Right.
my understanding of myostatin inhibitors was that when I took muscle physiology as an undergrad, I was very fortunate that the person teaching it was a very renowned muscle researcher who was doing trials, doing primate trials on myostatin inhibitors. And what I know is in 2010, I saw a lecture and I thought, oh my God, in 2 years, everyone's going to be enormous taking myostatin inhibitors. And I can tell you that about 15 years passed and that didn't happen, right? So that's the extent of my knowledge on the topic. But yeah, I don't understand who is forcing these people into a corner and saying, basically, there's a pop quiz today and you need to go on record talking about something that is completely well studied. If you wanted to know the answers to what you're talking about, you could go find them. But what if you didn't? And then what if instead you just spoke about things that feel like they could be real? You know, it's not a good strategy.
No. Mm-mm.
All right, Lauren. Speaking of, sagging faces and all topics of the sort, the next headline here has a lot to do with looks. I peeked ahead and I've been very intrigued. I've seen this on my like Instagram Discover page. I've never really looked into what's happening, but your headline was looks minimizing rather than looks maxing. And why don't you explain what this link goes to?
Yeah, so we've talked about looks maxing with two X's as a big TikTok trend. Looks minimizing doesn't have two Z's, although I did put two Z's in our outline just because I felt like we need that continuity. But this Instagram profile is the Crooked Man 10, and one of our dear listeners alerted me to his profile. And he is the self-proclaimed first looks minimizer. He's training one side of his body. So he's training like one trap, one arm, one lat, and then taking a lot of selfies where you can see like severe imbalance. And he's doing this intentionally, and he's been doing it for a long time. And it's interesting. Um,
There's So, have you looked into his back? Because I always like refrained on commenting on this because I had assumed that there was some kind of hereditary condition and that he was just kind of leaning into it and saying, well, let's roll with it and let's just like exacerbate this or kind of exaggerate it. Am I to believe that there, to your knowledge, is no such underlying condition and he's just doing this because he feels like it?
Accurate.
That is wild. Has he ever gone on record saying why?
Uh,
Because like for the listeners, I can assure you this is it's a bit jarring.
it's
Like
jarring.
visually, it's striking and not what I would call the good kind of striking. Like it does play tricks on your eyes and looks I can't think of anything else other than jarring. So why would he do this?
Um, I don't know, but
Well, there you go. Hard hitting your
like
answer.
I mean all I know, I mean I guess for attention, like it gets views. I don't know why you would want that. It's like an interesting experiment,
You know,
I guess. But you kind of know what the outcome is going to be if you hypertrophy style train one side of your body.
here's what I would like to know though, and I actually might reach out to this person because this is kind of like a real case study in like the people that really catastrophize about muscle imbalances and like muscle asymmetries. I just want to talk to this man and be like, how often do you get like headaches, neck aches, lower back pain? I just want to go all the way down the chain and get a sense of this because like
That was actually the listener's question, is how problematic is this, is what he's doing for kind of injury risk and that kind of thing.
yeah. And my belief, and I have students ask me about that all the time, and what I tell them is essentially nobody is symmetrical.
Right.
The question is, how asymmetrical are you? How imbalanced are different muscles relative to each other? And so knowing that essentially 100% of the population is asymmetrical to some degree, the vast, overwhelming, huge majority of them will never suffer a consequence of any kind related to any kind of imbalance or asymmetry. That's not to say that there never could be any potential risk when you consider which muscles are involved, what joints they cross, what activities you do, and in what context. Like no one in the world is gonna so for example, I've done some stuff with sports scientists, right, where you do often applied longitudinal testing. If you have an athlete who's engaged in a sport that does a lot of lateral cutting, side to side, accelerate, decelerate, soccer, basketball, American football, etc., and you're tracking an athlete over the season, and you see that they're, let's imagine landing forces, right leg versus left leg. If you see that they start the season with an 8% difference, and that's growing to 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, something is going wrong. Like when
Right.
you watch those diverge, no one in their right mind who's ever hung around athletes for more than 20 seconds is going to say, yeah, put him on full go. Like this is great. I'm sure he's not at all at increased risk of anything bad happening, given the fact that something clearly is going wrong here. But my general take on it is that most people dramatically overstate the potential impact of some of these minor imbalances and asymmetries comparing one muscle to another. So what I usually tell people is for the vast majority of the population, I just wouldn't give it a second thought. That's my 2 cents. Do you feel any differently about that?
Yeah, well, I think when you talk about the professional athlete or just athlete context, then you think, are you doing something that is necessary and repetitive stress, like a pitcher, for example? You're only using one arm and it's over and over and over again. Or even for there's some manual labor type jobs where it's repetitive stress that is really favoring one arm or one side of the body or staying in one position for a really long time. So I mean, those are definitely more extreme examples than I think what you're alluding to, which is people being like, well, it looks like my right bicep is a bit bigger than my left bicep or something like that. Um, but yeah, so I think it becomes a problem when we get in those more extreme situations. But I would agree that for the majority of people, it's not something to worry about.
Yeah, and if I may pitch another podcast. So I recently recorded an episode of Iron Culture, another podcast, and I had a really excellent sports scientist on the show who works with NFL athletes. And this is one of the things that we talked about was when you're talking about like general fitness versus high level athletes, collegiate and pro, there are just fundamental differences in what we're asking the body to do. You know what I mean? So like when I'm talking about like I have a wide receiver who doesn't get to choose if they're going to be cutting left or right. They're going to be doing both. And they're going to be, they run a 4.4 second 40-yard dash. They are an elite athlete. These are the like race cars relative to most of us humans being the, Toyota Camrys. So when you are able to put that level of force when it comes to cuts, accelerations, decelerations, the little things do become a little bit more important. And that's why think about it. You turn on, Lauren, you watched probably, God, 10 straight hours of college football on Saturday. How many non-contact injuries do you see? If you watch Lauren's steady diet of 10 hours of football on a Saturday and probably 8 more on a Sunday with the NFL games, you're going to watch guys who they tear an Achilles, non-contact. They tear an ACL, non-contact. So you don't wake up and go throughout your day thinking, I hope I don't turn wrong and blow out my Achilles tendon, right? So it's always a matter of, again, like, what is the context and what are you actually exposing your body to in terms of your training, your activities of daily living, and if applicable, your sport. So do I worry about massive and unstable asymmetries in athletes who are competing at the highest level and putting their body through very unusual stresses? Yes, I do. Have I ever spent 1 second worried about me and my asymmetries? Even when I was like squatting, in the, high 400s, low 500 realm, even then I was like, I'm not really putting my body through that much, So it's all about the context and the magnitude. All right, Lauren, let's move on here. Getting very sports sciencey. I hate when you drag me into that when we're trying to keep it general fitness. All right. So let's see here. Let's stick on the attractiveness. I like the theme we have going here. So this says, clutter makes you less attractive. Clean up your act or risk killing your relationship. And this is from your stomping grounds, the New York Post. So what advice do we have for people in terms of their decluttering and therefore apparently their attractiveness?
So it's a rare moment that the New York Post actually referenced a study. It was a survey. And it apparently showed that over 1/3 admit a partner's clutter has made them feel less attracted to them. And I mean, since it is the New York Post, it wasn't a published study, but it's a survey. So, yeah, they say 61% said that clutter sparks regular blow-ups, and women find this more of a problem of their male partners than the men do of their female partners.
Yeah. This is an interesting little article here because it gets very malicious toward the end of it. So they mentioned that Nearly 4 in 10 adults admit that they've purged a partner's belongings secretively, and that number is even higher among Gen Z. Some men have accidentally broken things just to get rid of them. 35% in general, but with Gen Z, it was at 52%. Um, so this
I
is
like that
really
they
bad.
call this domestic sabotage.
Yeah, I mean it's nasty stuff. So it says 1 in 5 Gen Zers say that they've withheld affection, time, or attention to get their partner to clean. Uh, this is honestly like there's a lot that's very troubling about this article. When like it sounds like a lot of people are treating their what should be their most prized relationship in their life essentially is just warfare. Like this is a tug of war with sabotage and all sorts of sneaky tactics. But also
But
this,
everyone
this
knows that just ignoring your partner is the best way to get them to do or fix something that's bothering you.
yeah, or withhold affection as if you're training them like a dog. Yeah, standard conditioning techniques, breaking their things, throwing their things away.
Don't even
Really just
consider communication. That's not even
Yeah, it's
it.
really just anything other than like, hey, it kind of bums me out that our house looks like a disaster, and it'd really mean a lot to me if you would, help me keep this place clean. That is off the menu. That is simply not going to happen. And this is really a
It's actually not even
slanderous,
mentioned anywhere in the whole
yeah.
article.
And this is really a slanderous piece when it comes to Gen Z because all of these like little petty, sneaky instances of what you call sabotage, according to the article. It's
Domestic
just
sabotage.
Yeah, domestic sabotage. Apparently, Gen Z is all about these passive aggressive sabotage tactics. So, really, a troubling thing to be reading. So, Lauren, after reading this, I notice my wife doesn't care about me and does not listen to these episodes, but I genuinely will like see articles like this and just feel so lucky of like, thank God I'm out of this. Like I found someone, we work, it's good, and I don't have to worry about like is the person I'm dating going to emotionally withdraw in order to manipulate me into guessing their desires. Do you get the same kind of feeling when you read these?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, now that we're talking about it, I
Are
do
are are
recall.
you engaging in this? Is this you? Are you sabotaging?
No, I'm actually going to call out my mom
Oh God.
because I remember like my dad would have, socks or underwear or something that it's like his favorite because it's old, but it's really comfortable and like worn in and or pajama pants or whatever. And it would have holes in it.
Oh yeah.
And my mom would definitely throw it out behind his back and he'd be really pissed because it's like, no, those are my comfiest ones. Um, I have never done that. I've certainly suggested that my husband throw out some stuff or donate if it's in a condition to donate. But I've also, when I lived alone, I was extremely particular about where things go and organizing this and cleaning that, and everything has its place. And when I moved in with someone else, I had to make some changes in sort of my realistic expectations for how the day-to-day house was going to be. And not to say that I live in a dirty space, but uh, there's somebody else there who has a lot of their stuff, and there's a bit of a compromise that has to be made unless you do actually want to be fighting about it all the time.
Yeah. There's two approaches. One is compromise, the other is manipulation. So, we'll see where you land over the next, 60, 70 years. There's always the opportunity to go the other direction.
That's true.
Um,
I will say too, though, if I'm ever like, hey, can you load the dishwasher? Can you wipe down the counter? It's not like he would sit there and say no or ignore me. He always does it. But sometimes he needs me to ask him to do it. And I think that
yeah.
some women don't, or maybe just partners in general, right? You want the other person to know exactly what you want without asking and do it. and you're not
Now,
happy unless that happens.
yeah, you're correct in that it doesn't necessarily fall on gendered lines, but I do think that it's an affliction that men suffer a little more in the aggregate. But I immediately upon dating anyone tell them I something's wrong with me. And like to the extent that there's a spectrum of like being pretty good at picking up on those cues and being completely oblivious, I feel like I'm literally on my own island, like in like five standard deviations on the oblivious side. So I've just had to make that clear with people in my life. If you are trying to give me hints, I don't know what it is about me, but it's like I don't pick up on any of that in the slightest. And there was one time where someone I was talking to someone and they were like, "Well, I know that you and this third person have been, I know you guys have been having a lot of conflict in your, interpersonal relationship over the last year." I had no idea. I had absolutely no idea. And I said, "What do you mean?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, like you and that person. I mean, I know that you guys have had a lot of conflict. You've been kind of butting heads, and it's been tense for the last year, Lauren, for 12 months, 12 normal human months, about 29 days long." I had no idea. So yeah, when it comes to little subtleties of, I was hoping you would clean that. I was like, the moment I start dating anyone, I'm like that'll never happen. It's not because I'm not trying. It's because I have a defect. So yeah, folks, I think the moral of the story is you got to just communicate a little bit. That's ultimately the way to do it. It makes everyone happier. So just chat sometimes.
And declutter. You don't need all that crap. Get rid of some
Yeah.
stuff.
See, my wife and I, with our home, it's interesting because I am tidier, but she is cleaner, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a very big difference.
It is a
Um,
difference.
yeah. So if I were left to my own devices and were just living the bachelor life in my old apartment, um, basically
With your
nothing would.
abstract posters on your wall.
Correct. Yes, I used to. That was always a classic. That was a hit. I put up my science posters all over. But if I were left it to my own devices, basically the way it would go, and I know this isn't framing myself in the best possible light, but no one's going to listen to this anyway, so that's fine. Um, I would be the kind of person, I was the kind of person who, like, you would not find, like, stuff on my floor, stuff on my counters, like, things would be put away, but, like, I may never mop. It just may never happen. Like, we're talking, if I were to mop, we're talking on, like, maybe 24-month cycles that would
Yeah.
ever occur. So, a dirty, filthy, disgusting person, but also quite tidy. That's my approach to life.
What about washing your sheets?
Lauren, don't ask me about that on
Oh.
air. This is a thing. Again, not to paint with too broad a brush, but I feel like men enter the
Single
world.
men don't wash their sheets. Yeah.
Single men, yeah, have never. They missed that meeting. All of us missed that meeting when you were given the instructions on what is an appropriate timeline for washing your sheets. And I think most single men between the ages of 18 and 25 believe that you wash your sheets when something has happened. So there is a spill, something has gone wrong, and therefore they treat washing their sheets like washing the curtains hanging on their window, right? Like, on the rare occasion that something happens to them, then you would wash them. So I know that that's just filthy and disgusting, but I feel like all married men are now basically in a life of, you never shake that. You are just constantly rehabilitating from that perspective. Um,
My husband has never once been like, "Oh yeah, we should probably wash your sheets. Like I'm gonna go put them in the."
yeah, that's never happened in my house either. So I'm not holding my breath for me to ever do that. So yeah, but isn't that what makes it all fun? Is our differences? Okay, so let's move on. I want to stay with this theme here. So this was something that I came across independently, and I was surprised and pleased to find it on our outline for today. So the headline is ear seeding the solution to cortisol face? And I really enjoyed this because I saw it on Instagram, and the post I saw was actually someone posting about this post. And the nature of this commentary was basically like, what is happening out there? They're like, I don't understand. I know every word in this sentence, but I cannot fathom what's happening here. What is ear seeding? What is cortisol face? Why would I want to resolve it? So Lauren, I guess I'll just pose the question: is ear seeding the solution to cortisol face?
Well, I think we've discussed on this podcast that cortisol face is not a thing. So
With
it's
the exception of like, like
if you have Cushing's, then
right.
yes, you can end up getting that kind of puffy looking face. But
Yeah,
the way
the
it's being
phenotype.
used online is to
You
say
don't, yeah,
that
you don't have a bad day or a bad week and get cortisol face.
right. I for sure had cortisol face this entire weekend. I felt like my face was out to here because I was on airplanes, not sleeping, eating extremely high sodium foods, and not getting enough water because American Airlines service was abysmal. So I
But
had
I'm
definitely
very
puffy
certain.
face.
I'm very certain that you had a very particular face when you were sitting on that plane, but I don't think cortisol had anything to do with it.
I mean, so this is like the idea that there's all these acupressure points in the ears and that each of these points relate to some internal organ. And so you can, I mean, it's like with acupuncture, they'll stick a needle in a certain part of your ear and then say, oh, this is fixing some issue with your kidney or something with fertility. I mean, there's a whole kind of lore of this. Um, I I don't like to totally trash um non-Western medicine necessarily. I think there can be a time and a place for it, and there are use cases for it that maybe we don't have the kind of data we would want if we were going to prescribe a drug, for example. But maybe if there's something about just the sort of relaxation, self-care component that could be helpful for whatever reason. It almost doesn't even matter if it's the reason that you thought it, or if that it was going to be. Ultimately, if it kind of helps, then I guess that's a win. So
Yeah,
this is
I
like,
think to that point, I think a lot of the kind of traditional remedies I've heard of along this vein, if you really analyze them, you could argue that they're essentially a mindfulness practice. You know what I mean? And so sometimes that alone can offer some benefit, even if it has nothing to do with what's happening to your skin or your ears or whatever. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So I mean, with this, they're kind of described as like a bead or magnet that's attached to something adhesive, like a tiny band-aid that you then put in the proper location. Or I mean, you're supposed to get a professional to apply in the proper location, and then you massage them in circular motion. And depending on where you put it, it's supposed to help with digestion and um lymphatic drainage, and so therefore it's going to get rid of your cortisol phase. I think at face value, we do not need any more products of any kind that are kind of spotlighting this cortisol face that doesn't exist and is just the appearance of your face or your skin or your overall body due to certain lifestyle choices, either acute or chronic. Because it's just encouraging people to waste money on these weird health treatments, expecting some outcome that you're not going to get from that.
Yeah. Do you think that maybe if you cycle the seeds that you're using for ear seeding, that based on your menstrual cycle phase, do you think that would make it more effective? We don't have data.
Well, there are definitely people who promote seed cycling in terms of consumption of seeds, so that, for like 1 week of your cycle, you should eat flax seeds and then you
Yeah.
should eat sesame seeds. Um, and that's going to cure your PCOS. It's going to
Yeah.
help with fertility. It's going to ease menstrual symptoms. But I will say, I did look into this whole ear thing a little bit more because I wanted to know what these different points kind of claimed to address. And there is a shocking number of points. The diagram sort of looks like, if you think about piercings and the different names of the different piercings, and you look up a diagram of the ear, and then it points to different parts of the ear and where you might get a piercing, and there's all the different names for it. This is that, but way, 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 way more. And there are theoretically points in your ear that are going to target various parts of your ankle, heel, fingers, I mean, basically every part of your body, but even lumbar spine, thoracic spine, uh, eye disorders, dental issues, uh, your wrist, certain skin disorders, like muscle relaxation. That is interesting to me. That if I put
So,
something in my ear, like right here, then it's going to help my skin.
yeah.
Can.
So, Lauren, I want you to take a mental trip with me here. No flights. We're just imagining. So
Good,
don't
because I'm never
don't
gonna
bail.
want to go.
Yeah.
All right.
So imagine that the year is 35 BC and you are hanging out in a beautiful, picturesque place in China.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to venture to say you've got a lot of time on your hands if you think through your kind of day-to-day life. And so my understanding is that this practice dates back at least a couple thousand years, probably closer to 3,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it is indeed impressive that they've mapped out such a very intense mapping of the ears and where the placement all goes. But they have had a lot of time. You got to acknowledge
Right.
that.
Right.
So if you give someone a 3,000 year head start, and back then people didn't have as much Instagram scrolling to do, so you could get pretty far kind of mapping out the ear to ankle pipeline and all the assorted places.
I have a question now. So if there's this point, right, and it just says left heel, then is the pressure always going to alleviate pain in my left heel? Let's say my left heel was numb and I wanted to increase sensation. Is the same thing? Do I because when we think about these, there's a lot of issues that you might have with your skin or your eye or your so I wonder if I feel like a couple episodes we talked about some ancient remedy that was like it could increase hair loss or it could decrease hair loss. It
Yeah.
was like either of these were an option.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we're kind of on the same, like, it could help with your kidney disease. It could also make your kidney disease worse. All we know is this year point kidney.
Yeah. Well, as a former wrestler, my big question is how does cauliflower ear factor into the whole ordeal? Because I feel like essentially you get cauliflower ear. If you don't get it, drained right away, then basically your ear starts to look like a mountain range where there used to be a flat plane. And I feel like that totally messes with the geometry of the whole treatment and may in fact impede being able to get the message through. So let that be a word of caution out there. If you get cauliflower ear, you probably want to get that drained ASAP if you have any hope of engaging in ear seeding. That's my 2 cents.
Great.
You seemed absolutely disgusted by that.
Yeah.
You know what it is, right? It's not that gross.
You know how like psoriasis fries is gross? Like
Yes.
cauliflower ear is gross for the same.
So you don't if it were called something that didn't invoke a food, you think it might be a little more palatable?
Correct.
No pun intended. Yeah. Um yeah, it's weird though. I think because wrestling is known for like people get skin conditions, skin diseases and whatnot, infections.
Mm.
I've noticed that a lot of people that I've talked to thought cauliflower ear was like some kind of disease of the ear, and I'm like, it's just an injury. You banged your ear and mess with the cartilage. It's kind of it. So it's not nearly as gross as people think, but it is very unpleasant. All right, Lauren, enough ear talk. Can we move on, please?
Yes, let's move.
Let's talk a little bit. It's fall time. Fall's my favorite season by a mile. So let's stay on theme here. What happens to your body when you eat pumpkin spice? And first of all, what is pumpkin spice? We're talking cinnamon, ginger, and cloves. Is that right?
Yeah, nutmeg usually.
Nutmeg,
Maybe
throw some of that in
small
there.
spice. Yeah.
Allspice is that's a cop out. That's not a
Right.
real term. But okay, so what happens and how should I feel about this?
Well, this article on health.com is basically saying that, these are going to reduce inflammation, support heart health, uh, reduce some oxidative stress, help regulate blood sugar, promote healthy digestion. So there's a lot that they're claiming from this.
Cool.
But I need to just point out that when people are consuming pumpkin spice, they're almost always consuming it in the form of a very high calorie latte, a donut, maybe a muffin.
Pie.
Sure. And you're probably not actually. So they really break down these individual components of like, oh, what can cinnamon do? What can ginger do? Do you know how much of this you would actually need to consume to even get like even a fraction of the proposed benefit? And like I said, typically people are consuming these things in something that is not that great for you in other ways. So it's kind of a funny article in that way.
Yeah, and that's the thing with spices. I'm not what you would call an expert bakesman or cook,
No
but
one would say bakesman in any context. Sure.
I think they should.
Okay.
But but my understanding of spices is that it's really the subtlety that makes them work. Like heaping on spoon after spoon. It's you got to be
You ever
subtle.
tried to eat like a tablespoon of cinnamon?
No, I
Just
have.
dry scooping. Go for it.
Yeah, that was a challenge a while back that I think was pretty treacherous. But yeah, that is always tricky with this stuff. You'll see all these things. They'll do it with spices a lot, and you can fill in the blank. Pumpkin spice or turmeric and cumin and all down the list. Um, and yeah, the one thing you'll never catch them talking about is in this study it was found to do blank. You'll never hear them talk about the dose,
No.
ever, 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 because it essentially fundamentally once a person hears that dose, they say, "Oh, well, then none of this applies to me, does it?" And the answer is no. Uh,
And in the context of turmeric, when we do see some of that, those reports of, liver injury related to the turmeric supplementation, you would never see that from using the spice on your food because this is a highly concentrated, like mega dose, and that's not what you're using when you're cooking. And if you
yeah,
did, your food would be really gross.
absolutely. Yeah. All right, Lauren. Well, this is interesting. We got a headline here. It just says "loaded water" from your stomping grounds, the New York Post, and frankly, I have no idea what this could possibly be referring to.
This is just another hydration hack. Basically, the cucumber water, the alkaline water is out, and so now loaded water is in, meaning it's like if you're gonna have loaded fries, right? Like you need
Oh,
to add a
okay.
bunch of stuff to it. So
Nacho cheese and bacon bits and the whole
100%.
the whole deal.
Or poutine if you are Canadian. And this is enhancing your water with electrolyte powders or coconut water or prebiotic sodas, which are total bullshit and extremely overpriced. Don't buy those. But those are examples of loading your water.
Yeah. This is another one that kind of I'm okay with it. Like I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. But um there's a lot of people that are really into electrolytes who don't need to be into electrolytes. Like there's a lot of people who are going out of their way to consume electrolyte powders that have a really high proportion of sodium.
Yes.
And if you were to look at their diet, it's like, listen, there's many things that you could seek out. Sodium is not something that you need. Like, you work in a air conditioned office. You do light exercise 5 times a week for about 45 minutes each in a climate controlled scenario. You eat about 6 grams of sodium a day through your diet. why in the world are you supplementing with sodium? They're like, well, it's not sodium. It's a whole milieu of electrolytes. But then you look at the label and you're like, brother, this is like mostly sodium. So yeah, like I just don't understand how we got to this place where people feel so inclined to be supplementing with electrolytes where there's just absolutely no need.
Well, I think when we were growing up, it was they were sports drinks, and so you would only see them with kids that were playing sports. And then now it's been repackaged and rebranded to see like this is a health supplement. Like this is what you do if you are a healthy person. It's not about if you're an athlete. So it's like these electrolyte powders are part of you know, a multivitamin type regimen.
Yeah, and it's really important. Like the science that went into the development of those sports drinks was really impressive. I mean, basically, when you look at the mixture that went into kind of the original like Gatorade formulation, first of all, it was essentially designed for people doing extremely hard physical activity for extended periods of time in extremely hot, humid conditions.
Such
And
that
so,
you're literally losing body weight from your exercise.
yeah, we're talking about people who, if they did not replace fluids throughout their workout, would lose 3-4% of their body weight from start to finish. And so the idea was like, well, we need to assume that you're working at a very high rate of effort. And so now we need to look at what sources and amount of carbohydrate can you realistically absorb in a given time frame. So you don't want to go too high, don't want to go too low. What's the right amount of sodium to facilitate not just electrolyte replacement, but also stimulation of thirst so that you'll keep drinking more. And so when you look at the actual like concentration in original formulation Gatorade, the concentration of sodium, the concentration of carbohydrate, it is all extremely carefully tailored to glycogen dynamics, thirst stimulation, and losses of sodium during high heat, intense exercise. Also, your 4-year-old nephew drinks it during t-ball games, right? And then so, which is fine, like whatever. But yeah, then it led to this thing where now people are like, oh, my electrolyte needs are so far, they are so much more serious than what you could get from a low or zero calorie Gatorade. I need to be supplementing with a more complicated mixture. And it's just like, I would say in 98% of the cases, really not real. And even folks I know who like know stuff, who do like really intense stuff, even they're like, I don't want to do that. So like I used to my the department where I did my undergraduate exercise science degree, some departments kind of take on an identity. You know, you have very lifting focused exercise science departments. This was a very endurance focused one. So I was actually I was actually there the day that the whole like Lance Armstrong story broke, and it was like a funeral in in the exercise science like meeting areas. And I actually like felt really bad because I walked in and I thought we all knew. I was like, what, you guys are just figuring this out? So like I was like cracking jokes, and then I realized, oh, we're not in the joke cracking phase of digesting this news. But anyway, these folks would often run these like 50, 100 plus mile races. And they were like, oh, I need more sodium and carbohydrate. And so they would just like leave Coke out the night before and let it flatten out and just sip on that during it. So like you don't have to work that hard to kind of find the right carbohydrate and electrolyte mix for what you're doing.
Yeah, one of these popular ones is marketed as like hydration for every occasion. And so they say, you know, it's important for like, mental clarity and everyday wellness, and it's a hydration multiplier. And I don't even know what that means because if you're not if you're consuming excessive sodium, that's not keeping you more hydrated. That's not
Right.
like hyper hydrating you. That's not a thing. If we drink too much water and we don't need it, we pee it out.
Yeah.
There is no multiplying hydration.
Yeah.
There's a ceiling, and your body is really really good at like regulating what you need.
Yes. Your body, and specifically your kidney, is going to be keeping tabs on your fluid balance, your sodium levels and your potassium levels. And it's going to be dishing things out as needed and only in very severe circumstances where you did something weird. You did something very weird. I should say, or you have a relevant medical condition, which is not your fault. But the only times where you see like a person, it's like, oh my God, they need electrolytes. It's usually like, yeah, I heard I was supposed to drink more water, so I started drinking 3 gallons of water a day, and I just don't eat any sodium in my diet because I also am like afraid of sodium. It's like, yeah, if you really try hard, you can be in a situation where they're going to be like, yeah, we need to get you some electrolytes. Also, stop doing this. What are you doing? But yeah, generally speaking, like you said, Lauren, in the overwhelming majority of cases, basically the question is, are you getting enough sodium every day? Almost always the answer is yes. Are you getting enough potassium? Most people would benefit from getting more than they do, but most people are not like careening toward a clinically relevant shortfall of potassium because we are good at balancing that out with the kidney. And then are you drinking enough fluids to just generally be hydrated? And so it's really not hard to
Which
thread.
also includes eating food that contains water,
Yeah,
which is
yeah. I
part of our
think the
food
last time I checked, I think the estimate is depending on, it varies a lot from diets, but I think maybe like 40% of your fluid intake comes from food rather than beverages in many cases. So yeah, you don't need to be, I mean, I will say this, Lauren, I'll tip of the cap, literally, to New York Post. These waters look delicious. Like, I think it's because I am thirsty right now and I am going to go get a drink the minute we stop, but these are decadent, these beautiful jars of water with all sorts of vegetation, spinach and mint leaves and citrus fruits. Like these do look lovely. You got
I love, when you're in a nice hotel or spa or something and they have water that's been infused with cucumbers or some kind of herbs or something. That's nice. So, yeah, if you want to uh, level up your water game by adding some nice stuff to it, then that's nice, but it's not going to make you more hydrated or whatever else people are claiming it does. Oh, like mental clarity. What is this with it's every day there's something else that we need to be doing for mental clarity, and it makes no sense. Like you put lemon in your water and you're going to be more mentally clear.
It makes perfect sense, Lauren,
Oh.
because mental clarity is, of all the low-hanging fruits that you could aim to grab using the placebo effect, mental clarity is it is so low a fruit that the branch is just dragging along the ground, and you may accidentally step on it if you're not careful. So yeah, it is the most appealing thing to say, like, let's see, I don't think this is going to do anything, but may I convince you that it will improve your mental clarity? And then people say, yeah, like I feel generally optimistic because I tried a new thing, and yeah, I think I am thinking more clearly. So that's the
Excellent
game.
marketing.
That's the business. All
Listening to
right,
Front
Lauren.
Page Fitness will improve your mental clarity, I hear.
It will improve clarity when it comes to how to sabotage your relationships by withholding attention and affection. We'll give you good travel tips about how not to operate airplanes. So, Lauren, I think we've provided clarity on at least a few hot button issues, how to not worry about resolving your cortisol face that you don't have.
Right.
So, as we wrap up here, is there anything else you want to tell the good people?
Well, I noticed that there are still a few of you, at least a few of you out there that haven't recruited 150,000 of your closest friends. I implore you to do so such that this episode reaches American Airlines client relations and they send me like a t-shirt or a cookie or $5 to Starbucks, something. Help me out.
That is every micro celebrity's goal, is to eventually accumulate enough power that they can tweet at companies and get a response. I think that is, and it is generally either like an airline or a telecommunications company / internet provider. Usually that is what I see is, someone with a healthy following shaming their cable provider or their internet provider via Twitter. So we want to get Lauren up to that level so she can really start threatening low-level employees on the internet. So do your part, folks. That does it for tonight's episode. As always, if you want to get in touch with us, and by us I mean Lauren, You can email frontpagefitnesspodcast@gmail.com. We always love to hear from you. And there's no shortage of stories out there, so make sure you keep them coming. Thanks so much, everybody. We will be back in 1 week with another episode.